pulls you into a world you never want to leave. I am so glad you are here today because what I am about to tell you is not just a story, it is a journey. A journey that goes back thousands of years into the heart of ancient India, into palaces of cruelty and forests of devotion, into flames that should have burned but didn't, and into colors that carry more meaning than most of us have ever imagined. So settle in, get comfortable, and do not go anywhere, because this story gets better and better with every single minute. Today we are talking about Holi. Yes, the festival of colors, the festival of joy, the festival where people drench each other in pink and yellow and green and laugh until their stomachs hurt. You have seen the pictures. You have maybe even celebrated it. But I promise you, you do not know the real story. You do not know what happened thousands of years ago that made this festival what it is today. And once I tell you, you will never look at Holi the same way again. Let us go back, far, far back, to a time when the world was very different. A time when kings ruled with absolute power, when gods walked among humans, and when the line between faith and fear was razor thin. We are going in ancient India, in a kingdom so powerful, so wealthy, so feared, that even the mountains trembled at its name. The kingdom was ruled by a demon king. His name was Hiranyakashipu. Say that name slowly. Hiranyakashipu. It means one who is fond of gold and silver. And that name tells you everything you need to know about this man. He was not just a king, he was a tyrant. He was ego wrapped in flesh and bone. He was ambition without a soul. Now, Hiranyakashipu had done something that very few beings in all of creation had ever managed to do. He had performed intense, terrifying, almost impossible penance. Years of meditation, years of sacrifice, years of pushing his body and mind to the absolute limit. And in doing so, he had pleased Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe. And when Brahma appeared before him and asked him what he wanted, Hiranyakashipu smiled, because he had been waiting for this moment. He had rehearsed this wish in his mind 1,000 times. He asked for immortality. But Brahma shook his head. That, he said, was the one thing he could not give. No one could be truly immortal. Death was the law of the universe. Death was the one door that every living being must walk through. But Hiranyakashipu was clever. If he could not be immortal, he would construct a wish so specific, so perfectly designed, that death would never be able to find its way to him. And so he asked for something else. He asked for a boon with conditions so precise and so strange that it seemed impossible for any of them to ever be broken. He asked that he should not be killed by a human, not by an animal, not by a god, not by a demon, not during the day, not during the night, not inside a building, not outside, not on the ground, not in the sky, not by any weapon that had ever been made. Brahma granted this wish, and in that moment, Hiranyakashipu became the most dangerous being in all the 3 worlds. He believed he was untouchable. He believed he was, for all practical purposes, a god himself. And so he declared it. He stood before his kingdom, before his trembling subjects, and he said, "From this day forward, no one in my kingdom will worship any god. No one will speak the name of Vishnu. No one will light a lamp for any deity. The only name you will speak, the only name you will bow before, is mine." And the people obeyed, because what choice did they have? Guards were placed at temples. Prayers were forbidden. The very air in the kingdom seemed to grow heavy, because faith had been locked away and fear had taken its place. But then something happened that Hiranyakashipu never expected. Something that shook him to his very core. Something that came not from an enemy, not from a warrior, not from a rival king, but from inside his own home, from his own blood, his son. His son's name was Prahlada. Prahlada was young, just a boy, small hands, soft eyes, a voice that had not yet grown deep. But inside that small chest burned a faith so fierce, so unshakable, so absolute, that it made grown men look weak. From his very childhood, Prahlada had been devoted to Lord Vishnu, not because someone forced him, not because he had read it in a book, but because it was simply who he was. The way some people are born knowing how to sing, Prahlada was born knowing how to pray. When Hiranyakashipu heard about this, he could not believe it. His own son, his own flesh and blood, worshipping the very God he had banned. He called Prahlada to him and looked at this small boy standing before him without fear, and he asked him, "Who is the greatest being in all of existence?" And Prahlada looked up at his father and said, without hesitation, without blinking, "Lord Vishnu." The court went silent. Hiranyakashipu's face went dark. He told his son, "You are confused. You are young. You will learn." He sent Prahlada away to be taught by royal teachers, men whose job it was to fill the boy's mind with the glory of Hiranyakashipu, to erase Vishnu from his heart and replace it with fear of the king. Months passed. Prahlada came back. Hiranyakashipu called him again. "Who is the greatest being in all existence?" "Lord Vishnu," said Prahlada. Hiranyakashipu tried again. More teachers, harsher lessons, more time. He was patient because he believed that every mind could be broken, every faith could be crushed, if you just found the right pressure point. Prahlada came back. Same answer. Always the same answer. And now Hiranyakashipu's patience was gone. If his own son would not bow before him, what message did that send to the kingdom? A king's authority lives in the eyes of his people. And here was his son, a child, openly defying him. He could not allow it. He decided that Prahlada had to die. Now this is the part of the story that will make you lean forward. Because what happened next was not one attempt. It was not two. It was a series of increasingly desperate, increasingly terrifying attempts to kill this one small boy. And every single time, something miraculous happened. Hiranyakashipu ordered his soldiers to throw Prahlada off a cliff. The boy fell. He should have died. But he landed safely, as if invisible hands had caught him. He ordered Prahlada to be thrown into the ocean, Wild elephants were brought to trample him. Venomous snakes were released around him. He was thrown into fire. He was given poison to drink. He was starved, beaten, buried alive. And every single time, nothing. Not a scratch. Not a wound. The boy survived everything. And after every attempt, Prahlada would open his eyes and simply say, "Lord Vishnu protected me." By now, Hiranyakashipu was beyond fury. He was terrified. Because a king who cannot kill his enemies is not really a king. And his enemy was a child, his own child, who kept surviving things that should have been impossible to survive. And this is where she enters the story. Holika, Hiranyakashipu's sister, the demon king's sister. And she had a gift, a divine gift, a cloak, a shawl, a magical garment that had been given to her by the gods. This cloak had one extraordinary power. As long as she wore it, fire could not touch her. She was immune to flames. She could walk through a burning building and come out without a single burn. Hiranyakashipu went to her. He had a plan. He told Holika, "Sit in a bonfire. Take Prahlada with you. Hold him in your arms so he cannot escape. The fire will burn him, and your cloak will protect you. My son will finally be gone." Holika agreed. Now, what was going through Holika's mind in that moment? We do not know. Maybe she believed completely in her brother's cause. Maybe she was loyal above all else. Maybe she did not fully understand what she was about to do. Or maybe she knew exactly what she was doing, and she made her choice anyway. History does not tell us her inner thoughts. History only tells us what she did. A bonfire was prepared, massive, roaring, crackling with heat so intense that people had to stand far back just to breathe. Holika walked into the flames, holding Prahlada tightly against her. The fire rose around them both. The crowd watched. Hiranyakashipu watched, finally allowing himself to feel relief. But then something happened. The wind changed, the fire shifted, and the cloak, the magical protective cloak, it moved. It lifted from Holika's shoulders. It wrapped itself around Prahlada instead. Holika, stripped of her protection, burned. Prahlada, wrapped in her cloak, survived. When the fire died down, the boy walked out of the ashes, unhurt, calm, with eyes still full of that unbreakable faith. And Holika was gone. It is said that Holika had misused her gift. A divine power given for protection had been weaponized for murder. And when a sacred thing is twisted for evil purposes, it loses its power. The cloak knew, the fire knew, and it made its choice. This night, the night Holika burned, the night evil was consumed by its own flames, this is the night that gave birth to the tradition of Holika Dahan. Even today, on the night before Holi, bonfires are lit across India. People gather around the flames, they walk around them, they offer prayers. They are remembering this moment. They are saying, "Evil burns, goodness survives." But the story of Hiranyakashipu was not over yet. He had lost his sister. He had failed to kill his son. And now he was not just angry, He was unhinged. He cornered Prahlada one final time, and this time there was nothing controlled about his fury. He was screaming. He demanded to know, "Where is your Vishnu now? Where is this God you keep talking about? Is he in this pillar? Is he in this wall? Where is he?" And Prahlada said quietly, "He is everywhere." Hiranyakashipu picked up his mace and smashed a pillar, and from that pillar, from the stone itself, something emerged, something that was neither fully human nor fully animal, a being with the head of a lion and the body of a man. Narasimha, the fourth avatar of Lord Vishnu, neither God nor human nor animal, not a weapon ever forged. The being emerged at twilight, that exact moment between day and night, neither one nor the other. Narasimha took Hiranyakashipu to the threshold of the palace. Neither inside nor outside. He placed him on his lap, neither on the ground nor in the sky. And with his claws, not weapons, but claws, he ended the reign of the demon king. Every single condition of the boon was honored. And yet, the seemingly invincible king was gone. Because the universe finds a way. Good always finds a way. And Prahlada? He became king. A just king. A humble king. A king who never forgot the lessons of his childhood, that ego destroys, that faith protects, that love is stronger than any army. Now, this is the mythological heart of Holi, but the story of this festival has more layers than just this one tale. Because Holi is ancient. Some historians believe it is over 2,000 years old, perhaps even older. And it has collected stories and meanings like a river collects streams along its journey. There is another story woven into Holi, a story of love. And this one comes from a very different world, not a world of demons and divine intervention, but a world of forests and flutes and a love so playful it became legendary. This is the story of Krishna and Radha. If Prahlada's story is about faith, Krishna's story is about joy, about color, about the way love makes you want to celebrate everything, including the very air you breathe. Krishna, as a young boy growing up in Vrindavan, was famously mischievous, and he had one complaint. One thing that bothered him endlessly. He was dark-skinned, deep blue dark, and Radha, the girl he loved, the girl whose laughter sounded like temple bells, was fair-skinned. He went to his mother Yashoda and asked, "Why is Radha so fair and I am so dark? Will she ever love someone like me?" His mother, with the wisdom and playfulness that mothers carry, gave him a suggestion that would echo through centuries. She told him, "Go, take colors. Paint her face any color you want. Then she will be just like you." And so Krishna did. He took colors, bright, bold, beautiful, and he ran to Radha and her friends and painted their faces, and they chased him back, and they laughed and they played, and in that laughter, in that chaos of color, something beautiful was born, not just between two people, but between the human heart and the idea of celebrating life without reservation. This tradition, the throwing of colors, the smearing of faces, the shrieking laughter of people drenched in powder and water, it comes from this story,
from a young god who was insecure about his color and turned that insecurity into one of the most joyful traditions humanity has ever created. And this is what makes Holi so extraordinary, if you really think about it. It took pain and turned it into paint. It took a boy's sadness and turned it into a song. The festival of Holi falls at the end of winter and the arrival of spring. And this timing is not an accident. It is deeply intentional. Winter in ancient India was a time of hardship, of cold, of survival. Fields were bare, animals were thin, and communities had been locked in the grip of the cold for months. And then spring arrived. Color returned to the world, flowers bloomed, the earth warmed, crops began to grow again. Holi was a celebration of this return, a celebration of survival, of making it through the dark and cold and arriving alive in the warmth and color of a new season. People played with the flowers of spring, with the natural dyes found in blossoms like Tesu, the flame of the forest, whose orange petals gave the festival some of its earliest colors. Communities came together, old grudges were set aside, and for one day, the entire world was allowed to be joyful without apology. Ancient texts mention this festival. The Narada Purana, the Bhavishya Purana, they speak of a festival that sounds very much like Holi. There are stone carvings in temples dating back to the 4th century that show scenes of what appears to be Holi celebration. The poet Kalidasa wrote about it. The great king Harsha wrote about it. Muslim scholars who visited India in medieval times wrote about it with a kind of astonished delight. They described the king of India celebrating a festival of color where high and low, rich and poor, played together without distinction. That is perhaps one of the most radical things about Holi. On that day, caste was supposed to disappear. Class was supposed to dissolve. A servant could throw color at a king, and it was not just permitted, it was celebrated. For one day, the usual rules of who was above whom were suspended, and everyone was just human. Everyone was just alive. Everyone was just drenched in color and laughing. This was revolutionary. In a society where hierarchy was deeply embedded in every aspect of life, here was a festival that said, "Not today. Today we are all equal. Today we are all children."
And then came the Mughal era, and something fascinating happened. Holi crossed religious lines. The Mughal emperors, particularly Akbar and Jahangir, celebrated Holi. There are records, actual historical records, of Mughal courts celebrating this festival. Emperor Akbar would play Holi with Jodha Bai. Jahangir's court historian wrote about the celebrations. Emperor Shah Jahan, before he became emperor, wrote poems about Holi. Even Aurangzeb, who was known for his strict religious conservatism, could not completely suppress the festival in his court. There are paintings from the Mughal era showing Holi celebrations, bright, vivid, joyful paintings of people drenched in color, of musicians playing, of women laughing behind latticed screens. These paintings exist today in museums. They are windows into a time when two very different cultures looked at each other and found something to share, found joy in the same moment. And as India moved through centuries, through colonial rule, through independence, through the massive changes of the modern world, Holi moved with it. It transformed, it adapted, it traveled. Indian communities carried it to every corner of the world, to the Caribbean, to East Africa, to Fiji, to the United Kingdom, to the United States. And in each new place, it found new voices, new hands, new faces to color. Today, Holi is celebrated in over 70 countries. People who have never read about Prahlada, who have never heard the name Holika, who do not know the story of Krishna and Radha, they celebrate it. They gather in parks and fields and university campuses and throw color at strangers, and for a moment, they feel something that does not need words, something that translates across every language and every culture. Joy. Pure, unfiltered, ridiculous, beautiful joy. But I want to bring you back to something. Back to that bonfire. Back to Holika sitting in the flames. Back to Prahlada walking out of the ashes. Because I think the real message of Holi, the message that has survived thousands of years, the message that lives inside every packet of color and every bonfire, is this. Evil is loud, but it is temporary. Fear is powerful, but it does not last. Faith, real faith, not the fear of punishment, but genuine love and trust in something greater than yourself, is the most unbreakable thing in existence. Hiranyakashipu had armies. He had a divine boon. He had absolute power over an entire kingdom. And what defeated him? A boy. A small, soft-eyed boy who refused to stop believing. That is the story inside the festival. That is what those colors are saying when they fly through the air. That is what that bonfire is burning away. All the Hiranyakashipus inside us. All the ego, all the cruelty, all the parts of us that say, I am the greatest, bow before me. Holi says, burn that. Let it go up in flames, and then step into spring with your heart clean and your face covered in every color of the world. Every year, when that first fistful of color sails through the air and lands on someone's face and they laugh, they are continuing something ancient and sacred. They are connected to Prahlada walking out of the fire. They are connected to Krishna running through the forests of Vrindavan with color-stained hands. They are connected to every human being across thousands of years who looked at winter and said, this is not the end. Spring is coming. Joy is coming. And they were right. They were always right. Thank you so much for being here today, for staying until the very end of this story. And it means the world to us at English Story World that you trust us with your time. If this story moved you even a little, share it with someone. Because stories like this are not meant to be kept to yourself. They are meant to fly, like color through the air on a spring morning. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and never stop believing in the power of a good story.